And we see this all the time, especially when we get new clients on board. They're like, I need to terminate someone. Well, how long has this actually been going on for?
What are some of the common mistakes that could lead to costly disputes? No doubt about that, and you just spoke about that. So, Daniela, when employers find themselves facing a Fair Work claim, what are some of the common mistakes that started the whole process? Because let's go back to process to try and eliminate that and stay on top of it.
Yeah, I think it's really just managing it and making sure that, as soon as an issue arises, you're dealing with it in the appropriate way with an employee. Again, whether it's a capacity issue, a conduct issue, a performance issue, dealing with it in the appropriate way so that you can refer back to the process that you've undertaken. You can show that you've counseled the employee on it. They're aware of what's expected of them and they didn't meet those expectations, that they knew what the consequences were if they didn't do what was required of them, and just having that paper trail to refer back to. But like I said, in practice, making sure that your policies and your processes actually reflect what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. That's the biggest issue. You see employers have these very generous policies and beautiful contracts, but the actual workplace is a very different situation. So you want to make sure that you're as clean as possible and you're doing everything the right way, because then you probably have a genuine defense. And it's also making sure that you don't wait until the employee has done something like go on stress leave or sick leave or raise complaints and you say, oh, they're a troublesome employee, we've got to get rid of them now. That's where the legal risk arises, because then the question turns, well, what was the real reason for the dismissal here? Was it because there's been these historic misconduct issues that were a legitimate concern and should have been managed? Or was it because they just made a complaint and then you thought, nah, can't do this anymore, troublesome employee, I want to get rid of them?
And then the old scenario comes into play of, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
should have done something about it. I should have taken them through the process. And it's all reactive and it's too late.
Absolutely.
And we see this all the time, especially when we get new clients on board. They're like, I need to terminate someone. Well, how long has this actually been going on for? Well, these performance issues have been going on for 8 months. Well, do you have any documentation? No. Well, we can't bring up what happened 8 months ago. It has to be timely and it has to be fair and reasonable on the employee. So, and that's what we've both been saying. It comes down to how you manage these things and jump on matters as they arise. Don't think that they're going to get swept under the carpet. If it's a once off and it doesn't come up again, that's awesome. But a lot of the time, the patterns just reoccur, and that's where then matters escalate and turn into something that what they really shouldn't have. And that's when, as we mentioned earlier, the emotional side and the reactive side of managing employees comes into it, because it's not necessarily that the employer has done anything wrong, but their frustration has built over time and then they explode. I've just had enough. Just sack
Yeah.
them,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
just make them redundant.
yeah.
Um, and that's then a problem that you're going to have to deal with once the individual is most likely out of the business. And then they will have a claim. You would have had a good stance if you had dealt with it at the time and reasonable management action had been taken. Because as you mentioned, Daniela, a lot of employees put a claim in because they believe unfairly they've been managed. Well, no, if you can show that reasonable management action has been taken, then you're in a lot better place. And manage matters consistently across the organisation. Don't unfairly treat one person than the other. Jump on it at the time. Emotion is normal. We're all human. But when we are responsible for leading people, we need to make sure that we follow the right process and practice what we preach. Basically, like you said, it's all well and good having good policies, and we preach, have all your policies, but actually practice them in reality.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is putting yourself in the position of your employee when you're making these decisions, when you're making the assessment of, is this reasonable? Well, if I was an employee, how would I react to this? If you've been going through, your working life, doing the same thing every day, and you've never had an issue raised with you, there's no concerns, and then suddenly you're in a meeting with HR and your employment's at risk, because there's this conduct issue or this performance issue that is apparently historical and been going on forever, and now it's an issue. I would be concerned too if I was an employee, because I'd be thinking, well, it wasn't an issue 8 months ago. Why is it an issue now? If an employee is managed appropriately, they're genuinely going to be more receptive to the disciplinary action. If they know that it's never nice, no one likes it, but they're genuinely going to understand it and be more receptive, because they will have understood what is expected of them, what will happen if they don't meet the standards required, if they don't improve, or whatever the case is. And it's not a shock. It's not a shock when they get pulled into the dismissal meeting because of the repeated issues that they haven't improved on. It's a lot of it's psychological too.
And that's what I say to people, you can take the sledgehammer approach, but that's not going to go your way. It's the way in which you actually deal with the employee. At the end of the day, they're human. The amount of times, the style and approach of your communication with the process will depict on whether it turns sour or not. We've had a number of clients where the employers actually thanked us for the way in which you've handled it, even though we might have terminated them or investigated them. It's because we've treated them like humans, and I think that's really important as a people leader. Yes, the employee may have done the wrong thing, but treat them in a decent manner, like you would like to be treated, as you said, Danielle, and the outcome will be nicer, guaranteed.